Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 6, The Cow in the Room. I'm Ian Collins and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it's in. I tell you what's usually in, Dale Vince, you in the Telegraph.
Yes.
How have they fared this week?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't buy it. I don't
Really?
read it
I thought you
either.
were on subscription.
I should get a free subscription, really.
Digital
I
version,
should be a
everything.
life member, shouldn't I? Some like that. Yeah, I don't know if I've been in the news, but I don't know if the Telegraph have picked it up or not. I don't know if it's on our agenda, but the latest kind of victory in the Hamasgate saga took place this week in the High Court. So that made the news.
Yeah. What is the latest?
Uh, so this fella called Lord Sean Bailey, who called me all kinds of crazy things, in relation to an interview I did a year and a half ago with Times Radio, 2 days after the October 7 attacks. He applied to a judge to throw my libel case against him out. The judge threw that out instead, and then the judge made a decision about something called basically the meaning of words. It sounds quite silly, but it's literally what it is. Was what he said, would it be taken to be libelous and defamatory and all that kind of stuff? Judge said, hell yeah. Was it a reasonable opinion or an honest opinion? And the judge actually went with him on that one, which means it'll go to trial now. But it doesn't make sense. We will win at trial if we don't win on appeal before that. But that's what basically happened. This fellow, Lord Sean Bailey, he's like fighting on the beaches over some outrageous things he said about me based on the fiction perpetrated by that man, Guido Fawkes, or the man behind Guido Fawkes. And just to recap for everybody, this Hamasgate thing began with Guido Fawkes, went round the right-wing kind of sphere of influence, media and politicians alike. I ended up suing the Daily Mail and GB News, 3 Tory MPs, and Anna Lord, and Guido Fawkes, and Richard Tice. That action is still ongoing. I've had damages, costs, apologies, and all that kind of stuff. Given all of the money to Palestinian charities, and we're just mopping up now with stains, mopping up stains. Sorry, that made me laugh. Tice. And this Bailey fella. And when that's done, we'll have done the whole set. Except Daily Mail came back around and repeated the slur, so they're about to cough up for that one. They just can't help themselves. And and for me, it's. I want to say this, right? I believe in free speech, but that's not the freedom to lie. And our press need to understand that you can't just go around lying about people.
Is that why you've gone the legal route rather than, because there's a fair argument to say, look, just get around a table, have a cup of tea, have a chat, and those who think they got it wrong can say, look, sorry mate, I got it wrong. Going through court cases is costly. The lawyers do really well. Yeah. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I say that's absolutely right. And most people don't have the time or the will or the money to pursue these bad people that say what the they want and think they can get away with it. But I have both. I have all of those things, the time, the will, and the money to pursue them and to make them behave. But don't misunderstand. They all get the chance to correct themselves first. It's only when they refuse to correct the record and apologize, where they insist that what they've done is nothing wrong, then we have to go to court.
Let's move to a big agenda, Dale. UK halves subsidies for Drax. What's the story here?
I like that. If I was writing that headline, I would say Drax faces the axe, right?
Yeah,
because
they missed a trick there.
They missed a trick there.
Yeah.
So, basically, Drax's subsidies are up for renewal, I think, in 2027. And this week, government made a big decision, and really, DESNZ are at the heart of this, and that's good news for all of us tree huggers, right? Because DESNZ is the one department of government that's delivering on the green agenda. So what they did effectively is to half the subsidies that Drax will receive in the future. And these boys have had billions of pounds of money of ours to burn trees that are shipped all the way here from Canada. They land magically on our shores as a zero carbon fuel source because the Canadians say, well, we'll keep the carbon footprint to ourselves and you can have these magically free of carbon. We burn them, shit goes in the atmosphere. We get what's being called clean power, but we're paying billions of pounds for it. Anyway, that's stopped. Those subsidies are being axed, and Drax is only going to be allowed on the grid now about a quarter of the time just to back up renewable energy. So really, it's the beginning of the end for burning trees to make power in our country, which is fabulous.
So you do a lot of bad shit, but then the bit you sell, the tree, is nice and clear and squeaky clean and free of jip. And so you can go, hey, look, I've got environmentally friendly stuff going on here. But in order to get that, you had to destroy a lot of stuff.
But it's Wizard of Oz stuff again. Over in Canada, they've got these wonderful, pristine forests with ancient trees. They chop the trees down and say they'll replant them, and they do what they have to do to them, pellet them up, ship them across the Atlantic. It's not very close, is it? And it lands on our shores, supposedly with no carbon footprint. Because the Canadians say, we'll keep that carbon cost, we'll put it in our account so that Drax can have zero carbon wood pellets from ancient trees in Canada. There's nothing right about it at all.
Yeah. But they do knock out a nice tree. Is that fair?
I think they axe quite a lot of lovely trees, actually. So I'm not sure what you're saying.
Let's move to this one. This is interesting because we often talk about pollution of cars. This is an air pollution story, and there's a devastating headline here about the link with cancer.
Yeah, I think it's something like 1,000 cases a year of a particular type of lung cancer. Some scientists, academics have been doing a study into this. It's linked to air pollution. And I think it's quite ironic because last week's big story was Heathrow, the government wanting to build a new runway at Heathrow to add another 250,000 jets to the skies above London. There's already 500,000 in and out of Heathrow in a year, so it's a massive increase. Of course, there's a lot of particulates come out of them jet engines over our capital, where already 4,000 people a year die of air pollution. And this is a new study says, look, there's an incredible increase in lung cancer of one particular type, and it's linked to air pollution. It's all basically about burning fossil fuels, but also trees as well.
It's interesting that the debate over air travel and pollution kind of does take a bit of a back seat, doesn't it? When they're talking about London, for example, it's just one. You could talk about Manchester, Edinburgh, all over the place, but London, obviously, very specific. It's capital city, therefore, a lot of traffic up there in the sky, but it doesn't get discussed in the same way as cars. We often talk about ULEZ cameras, and Sadiq Khan's, what for many say is an absolute obsession with ULEZ cameras, but very little is said on the skies.
Yeah, I agree. And the same with power stations and tree-fired power stations like Drax, wood burners as well. All of this stuff is putting pollution into the atmosphere. And I think I heard somewhere that actually burning wood is now London's number one source of air pollution. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I heard. But you're right. We tend to focus on cars, and actually, there's wherever you burn fossil fuels or wood, I'm just going to keep throwing that one in, then you produce air pollution and it kills people. In our nation, these are government figures. These are not made up by some kind of environmentalist like me. 40,000 people a year die from air pollution.
What are you going to do? All the posh people who've got those, those nice open fires, and if they haven't got a proper open fire, they've got one of those fires that you open the door and you shove some logs in there, and they almost showcase this by having a little log display, sometimes by the front door, so everybody can see their pristine collection of loggage. That's all got to go, right? Because that's going to upset people of Richmond and Cheam.
I think it's a real problem burning wood in the capital, and it's partly because the mayor has been so successful in bringing down pollution from cars with his ULEZ. But that's the way it is, right? Because as a nation, we've been so successful bringing down the emissions from the energy sector, from power stations. It means that our transport sector is now number one contributor of carbon emissions from our country. It used to be number two, but we've brought them down in the energy sector. Transport's number one. And the three together, just to remind everybody, energy, transport, and food, 80% of all of our carbon emissions are in those three areas of life: how we power ourselves, our homes, how we travel, and what we eat, in fact, which is what this series is all about.
Indeed, the cow in the room. Let's talk about building and construction. There's always, again, an argument you'd have heard loads of times. Trouble with environmental arguments is it stops progress. There's loads of stuff you can't ever do. They'll never build something again because there's an implication for the environment. Try building a skyscraper in the world of Dale Vince, I remember somebody saying on a tweet about a year ago. Well, it turns out you can build a skyscraper in the world of Dale Vince.
Yeah, I never saw that tweet, but look, people are saying anything on Twitter, aren't they? Formerly known as X. Or was it the other way around? Who gives a shit? Musk. This is the M&S story, right? The knocking down of the old flagship HQ that Gove prevented because he said it would have a carbon footprint. Gove, the man
Yeah.
who consented the new coal mine in Britain, for sake,
Yeah.
said knocking down a headquarters was bad. They should keep it. Blah blah blah. I'm all for it. And yeah, I think there was a story out this week, wasn't it, that it's going to be a green skyscraper somehow. Fuck knows
Yeah,
how.
somehow they've managed to do. So it's been the as you rightly say, the headquarters of was, I assume, the headquarters of M&S, and they're going to turn it into 550,000 square meters of much needed sustainable office space in the city. That was the bit that surprised me because I thought, does anyone need more office space these days?
Yeah,
Because
I
no
have
one
no
goes to
idea.
freaking work, do they? They just sit on the sofa watching a bit of daytime telly and reruns of this podcast.
I'm pretending to work from home. I think that's a bit of a right-wing obsession,
You
but
think?
yeah, I think
I'm
so.
having none of that. I take that very personally, Dave.
And that skyscraper, interesting stat about that skyscraper, like it's huge, right? It's doubled or trebled the size of the original building, but its energy consumption will be 1/4 of that original building,
Yeah.
which I think kind of justifies what's being done there.
Do you sense there's a bit of a precedent in stuff like this? Because that is always the argument, isn't it? Well, you'll never make progress all the while the green agenda's in town. Well, in fact, we'll come to a Donald Trump story in a bit, which perhaps addresses that. But this is an example of actually you can do it. And if big corporations and companies start to do it, then I guess the smart money says others will follow.
Yeah, and I think actually it's an example of another great department of government. Angie Rayner's department just took hold of this decision, said Gove's being a twat. This looks like a decent project, unblocked planning, and they've been doing that across the board really.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And I think it's a tired old argument that Greens don't want things being built. If you look behind me, you can see this model of a thing we call Eco Park. And for years, I've had people say to me, "Call yourself green, you're going to build things." I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Building things is not the problem. It's what you build, where you build, and how you build it. And this project, Eco Park, right, it's 100 acres of land. It's a green tech business park, 4,000 job creating, and all that kind of stuff. And the biodiversity levels will be 20% higher after we've built all that on farmland than it is now. And I just say that's because we can build things. We need homes, we need jobs, we need places for all of that. We have to build things, but we have to build the right thing in the right way, and it can be done.
Here's a question that comes in from Mark on LinkedIn. Dale, would you ever build your own electric vehicle again?
Well, as it happens, I am. That's been going on for a while, too long for my liking, but it always is.
So can I just clarify? When he says your own electric vehicle, does he mean your own to manufacture or just your own?
Well, I don't know what he means.
Like a kind of wacky races thing. You just make your own thing. With big
I imagine
wheels and arches and stuff.
I don't know. That sounds great, that does. But I imagine he's referring to the Nemesis, which is a car we built in 2010, Britain's first electric car. And I think it still holds the land speed record, actually. It's in the Science Museum now. And then we built a bike called the Iron Horse that went around the Isle of Man, actually, the Isle of Man TT. So maybe he's thinking about one of those two projects. But anyway, the answer is yes, it's happening right now, converting a Subaru to electric. And I don't know why, I just had the idea about a year ago that would be a very cool car. It was that or an Audi Quattro. I don't know if you've seen the series Life on Mars. You probably have.
Oh,
Things
yeah.
like this Audi Quattro, kind of
I love
twatty
all
everywhere.
that shit.
Yeah. And I thought, Audi Quattro or Subaru, and I ended up doing Subaru anyway. But also, and actually even more excitingly, we're building a motorbike based on a Ducati that we'll dub the Iron Horse again,
Nice.
and it'll be a road bike, and it looks really quite beautiful. And we're aiming for a real balance of performance versus weight and that kind of stuff. I don't think anybody's built a proper electric bike yet, and that's what kind of motivated me to get out there and do it.
Question from Shirley Ann. Dale, heard what you said about Devil's Kitchen last week. Why not go for Kindness Kitchen for schools? It's appropriate veganism for children and children of religious beliefs. Is that a thing, Kindness Kitchen, or has Shirley Ann just coined that phrase?
I have no idea, but I think it's a decent suggestion, and we've kicked around quite a few that are kind of, along those lines. We also kicked around People's Kitchen, the idea being that plant food is for everybody, so we've kicked a bunch of them around, and we've landed on one that we're going to rename the company as. I can't remember what it is now, kind of honestly, I wasn't that bothered because we're in wholesale catering and the brand is not really very visible. So just a matter of who does the invoicing. And as long as the devil's not asking for your money, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
but let me say this: we're going to keep the Devil's Kitchen brand because we really love it, and we'll use it in a different way, just not for schools.
Got it. Well, someone's trying to dob me in it here, Dale. I think I feel my own libel suit coming on. Maybe I can join you in the courtroom. We'll just go halves on the money side. Dale, Ian is always quite agreeable to anything you say regarding veganism, yet the moment he leaves the podcast, it's quite the opposite. He can be found on his talk show praising God, Colonel Sanders. For someone who hosts one of the world's best podcasts on sustainability and the cow in the room, I really think he should be addressing the millions of tortured caged chickens in the room.
I love it. I think this is Will's gift to you this week to put that question in.
Will wrote that himself.
He might have done.
Yeah, I haven't eaten. I can't remember the last time I ate chicken, and very little meat, actually, for that matter.
Well, you're in the spotlight now, Ian.
It's about a journey, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing's about a journey. We always said this about everything sustainability, and it's not about everyone doing everything at the same time.
No, it's not.
It's about everybody doing a bit, and that knock-on effect, the tipping point effect, as it were, nudge theory, whatever you want to call it. Atomic thinking, I think that's another one.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a bloke who wrote a book called Atomic Thinking, and if you do like a little bit, I think that's the book, a little bit of something every day.
That sounds homeopathy. Sounds like homeopathy.
It does a bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Just a little.
I know a fella that learned to play the piano, couldn't even read music. Did 2 minutes a day, and now he's at the Albert Hall. He's not.
But anyway, what do you say to the allegation that you praised the god, Colonel Sanders?
Listen, I've always praised Colonel Sanders, and on this podcast. Well, only because the bloke was like 150 in 1946 or something, and somebody fired him from his job, and he took his grandma's recipe out on the streets and said, "You fancy some cotton picking chicken?" And they went, "Yeah, all right." And that's how he made it. So from that angle,
you like his story,
100 years ago. You know, the guy was a trailblazer. Now he's just a kind of slightly cartoon caricature fun figure.
Yeah.
And no longer alive, of course.
And no longer alive. So doesn't mean we can say what we like. I mean,
call him a if you want. Let's try that. Dale, have you got a message for Colonel Sanders?
No, I haven't. No.
Anyway,
I love the question, and I particularly love the idea that this is one of the world's best podcasts. I like that.
Well, that is very true. Well, that just turns out to be a matter of fact. I get messages now at work on the radio show when people start the message by saying, "Ian, love the show and love the podcast." I had about 12 of those just this week alone. So,
no way. That's brilliant. I'm looking forward to the day when they start by saying, "Love the podcast, love the show too." And then continue.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's all going to get. We'll just be doing. Me and you'll just be doing this all day long. It'll be like a live feed of our lives. Charlie Brooker.
That'd be quite funny. That'd be quite funny.
Let's do a couple of Trump stories here before we go on to X-rated corner. So Trump has signed, and I don't know why he felt he needed to do this, an executive order to bring back plastic straws, because all the straws went paper, because plastic straws were a bit shit and they were ending up, in rivers and in turtles' noses and the mouths of fish, and the general pollution, the killing of animals. They weren't very good. I'm not saying the paper ones were great, but there are other alternatives. But Trump's gone, no, let's bring back the plastic.
Well, he done it in Trump style too, didn't he? He said that paper straws explode. I mean, what the I've never.
Really?
I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine they implode. They get a bit wet and they go all floppy on you. But an exploding paper straw, I think. Well, it's very Trumpian, isn't it? So,
yeah, I don't know whether he can. I don't think the American president is allowed to force corporations to bring back plastic. You can't say to McDonald's, right, you've got to bring back plastic straws.
He's unbanning it, is what he's done. He's unbanned single-use plastic straws.
Yeah. There it is.
That's what he's done.
I mean, that might go against another story. Record breakthrough growth in renewable energy in America. They say threatened by Trump, but is Trump kind of tacitly waving this stuff through?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? A couple of weeks ago, I had the same kinds of feelings. Look, Trump could act against renewable energy, but to do so would be an act of great economic harm against his own country and arguably his own interests. Will he really? Will he just talk big and not actually do much against the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act that Joe Biden put in place? And in this story, 22 Republican voting states, states that voted for Trump, 22 of them wrote him a letter and said basically, hands off the IRA, it's creating good jobs here, it's helping us get our bills down, all this kind of stuff, leave it alone. I mean, that's nearly half the country, right?
Yeah.
You've got to think he's going to listen to them. Texas, in particular, big Republican state, has benefited massively from the IRA. And in fact, Republican states have benefited disproportionately from that act compared to Democratic states. I have a feeling that he'll let sleeping dogs lie in terms of renewable energy, although they're not sleeping. The headline of the story is about a record increase in solar and battery installation in the US last year, 50% higher than the year before. So,
Yep.
some kind of exponential growth taking place. And look, that's the story of renewable energy in the world. And what kind of fool would try to stop that?
Well, which is why I don't believe for one second that in his heart Donald
Mm.
Trump doesn't actually agree with this. If you imagine there was no such thing as the environmental agenda and everything was tickety boo and nobody talked about it, 20 years ago, someone came up to Donald Trump and said, "Look, I've got this great idea. I've got these wind farms. It's going to do X," and they gave him all the workings out, and it's going to make you $500 million a month or something like that. I don't think he would go, "This is a load of shit." I think he would go, "Yeah, where do I sign?" Because that's instinctively what Trump would do. But what he's doing, of course, is playing to the contingent of voters that do think all of this is hogwash. So he gives a little wink to them. But why would he want to turn down something that's making not only, different states extra money, but also the country?
Yeah, and people that support him. I don't think he will. I think it would be an exceptional thing for him to do. I mean, you could look at tariffs as a great example. He talks very big on tariffs, and he has imposed some on China, but he walked back from tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and currently the EU are waiting to see what happens there. But it's big talk in order to get something that he wants, and big talk against renewable energy. I'm not sure what the game is,
Yeah.
unless it's just populism. It's just playing to the gallery. But we can watch and enjoy this show with a bit of popcorn.
With a bit of popcorn and no Colonel Sanders, can I just
yeah,
add?
it's not allowed, right? Yeah.
Not allowed. Here's a great, before we move to X-rated corner, UK used electric vehicle sales hit a record last year. The reason this is interesting, of course, was because the spanner in the works for some either doubters or some people not unreasonably going, "Look, I'd love to go electric, but I can't." They're all new. I've got to buy pretty much a new car because there's no second-hand market for electric cars. That's changing, of course, because they've been out long enough now to create a second-hand market, and apparently it's on the up.
Yeah, they're at price parity according to the organizations that monitor these things, and that's been really the difference. At price parity, people are like, "Well, yeah, I'll have an electric, right?" Especially people that can plug in at home because you can drive for about 2p a mile rather than something like 18p a mile, electric versus fossil fuels. And it's the obvious tipping point at price parity to buy.
Yeah.
They're much cheaper to run and to own over their lifetime, but that's not enough for the bulk of people. They need to be at least the same price to buy, if not cheaper. That's coming now.
Indeed.
It's coming for new ones as well. By 2030, I think
Sure.
the manufacturers reckon that there'll be price parity for all new cars.
Let's move to. I was about to say X-rated corner. These are the communications. Could be on X, could be on Facebook, wherever. That are never quite as complimentary or flattering, Dale. But your shoulders are broad, and they're always quite fun to go through them. Although, as I was just looking at them, I realised that Charles, who wrote me the letter about me banging on about Colonel Sanders, there was a bit at the end I didn't notice this bit, and I'm going to really defend. So I'm not saying everyone must align with our vegan beliefs, but for Ian to have such an extreme anti-vegan attitude when he's not on the podcast came as a surprise. Only yesterday, I had the Vegan Society on the show for no other reason really than to praise the if you like, the revolution of vegan food. So I'm going to respectfully disagree with Charles. I've always said if you can give yourself a healthier diet and it doesn't involve meat, then why would you not? In fact, I even said I think people are actually envious of vegans.
Wow, there we go. Bit of vegan envy.
Vegan
Who
envy. I think
doesn't
it's
want
vegan
that?
envy because you go, well, okay,
Yeah.
hang on. The vegan person is eating healthier and they're enjoying it just as much. So what do they know that I don't know? It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're glad to hear it. Here's a question
Hello?
from Farrell 66p. Dale Vince identifies as a wind turbine. Pass it on.
I like it. I call
Should
them
have some
windmills, by the way.
tumbleweed
I mean,
there.
but pay attention. I call them windmills.
I like windmills. I call them windmills as well. And I keep
Yeah.
getting corrected. People going, they're not windmills.
Well, they're wrong. They're wrong. You have to correct the correction because they're wrong. The alternative, we've talked about it before,
Yeah.
they're not turbines. I mean, turbines are multi-bladed, super
It's a windmill. Just
high-speed
because something
things.
doesn't make
They're not.
wheat or whatever, grain, whatever it is, doesn't mean to say it's not a windmill.
They used to pump water as well, windmills. And they
Yeah.
used to power factories with direct mechanical power. At the end of the rain, windmills were doing all of those things, but they were still called windmills.
This one comes in from Ferret Grove, who says, what Vince is doing is actually valuable. The free speech, fringe media, and some political types think they can say what they want, tell lies, or repeat them with impunity. Most of us don't have the energy or funds to take them to task. I'm grateful to those who do, like Dale. So that's not really an unpleasant message. That's a good one, right?
Not remotely, and it kind of it's what I was saying earlier on the show, isn't it? That most people don't have the will or the means to take these people on, and I have that, and I'm more than happy to do so. Having given them the chance to correct their mistakes, only the people that refuse to do that, I say, well, fine, then we'll take it to the judge and see what he says. I mean, X-rated corner, Ian, it keeps turning up these
Little gems.
improbable gems of like
people are
balance,
coming
right?
around. Although here's
Balance.
one that isn't. Somebody called Stay Karma says the only people who benefited from the Labour government are China, Mauritius, Rwanda, doctors, Lord Ali, illegal immigrants, Starmer's lawyer friends, and Dale Vince.
Wow, I'm last on the list. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, he put you in
I'm
the
an
middle, but
afterthought.
I
I
moved
thought he
it to
did.
the end.
No, I thought
Well,
so.
only for the dramatic effect. Because we knew where
It
it was
works.
going, right?
Yeah, we knew. We're all waiting. Come on,
Yeah.
when's his turn? Was there another one that you were about to read out earlier? I haven't got the list in front of me.
There was the one from Charlotte Gill.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Julia or somebody like that, and then you went back to your vegan attack.
Oh, there was Gillian. Sorry, who
Gillian.
said this was not X-rated. He says, Dale, you've been selling Skydiamonds now for 2 years. What have you learned? And would you do anything different if you had a fresh start?
So what I've learned is that actually it's hard to sell diamonds. Who knew? I thought they're so valuable, they'd be easy to sell. But people don't really want to buy a diamond on its own. People want to buy diamonds in jewelry. So we started making jewelry probably 18 months ago, and that's going okay, I would say. But a much tougher market, let's say, to break into. Making them, I thought, would be the hard part, but it isn't actually. That just took 7 years of R&D. Selling them is the harder part. But we are working now on a new frontier to make diamonds for quantum computing, and that looks really interesting.
Wow, that is. Back to Charlotte Gill. I think she's the Telegraph person.
Is she really? Oh, is that really?
Yeah, I think so. Or is she she's a writer, or she's on Twitter a lot. Anyway, she often has a pop, Dale, who says, $1 million question, who, with wealth, wants water put into public ownership? Apart from Dale Vince, I know there's a water lobby, but I'm trying to work out what funders will gain.
I think anybody that needs water and sewage services and wants and likes clean rivers, they're all in the same camp, Charlotte. We want the end to water privatization because it's a up.
And finally, one from Bill the Hillgill, whatever the hell that means, who says, Vince, Soros, Gates, all backed by China and Russia, and want net zero to cripple the West. Your secret plan has been unveiled,
revealed, or something, shit like that.
It's
funny, isn't it? It's so funny because net zero will enable us; it won't cripple us. Yeah. And if we don't get to net zero, that is the thing that will cripple us. It's a very twisted view that exists on certain parts of the internet.
There it is, Dale. We will speak in a week.
In a week, yeah.
You can, of course, follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince or x.com, whatever you like, facebook.com/DaleVince, and, of course, on TikTok too.
And of course, occasionally in the Telegraph too. Oh, we had a poll running, didn't we? We were going to. I bet 2, and you bet 3 stories in the Telegraph this week,
Yes.
and neither of us checked.
We haven't got any confirmation. Should
Well,
we do a rollover of that story to next week?
All right. Are you doubling up to 6 then?
I'm going
Or
to
are
go
you holding
5.
5 for the 2-week period or 1 week?
I think 5 over the 2 weeks.
All right. I will go 3
Okay.
because really they're cooling on me.
Yeah, but I reckon you know something. See, this is like this is how insider trading started.
Yeah. But there's no money at stake, so that's okay.
Well, not that we know of. Speaking of week, Dale.
All right. Looking forward to it.